How is it still January? Hello everyone, welcome back to Newcastle Fans TV. Nice of you to join once again. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe, comment and all that jazz. Couple of quick points. Miguel Almiron, as you well know by now, is set to go back to Atlanta. It may have even been confirmed by the time you get around to watching this video. Transfer deadline day is Monday, so after the game at Fulham, before the second leg to Arsenal, of course. Will we see any incoming business at Newcastle? No, we won't. And that's interesting because you look at Aston Villa and a lot of similarities and comparisons have been made between the two sides over the last couple of years, us qualifying for the Champions League, then they go and do it. We were interested in Emery. They went and got Emery after we, finally chose Eddie Howe. Flags, very, very interesting. Not a flag was seen at Villa Park back in the day, but they're all the rage. But look, there's an interesting change of tact happening between the two sides, probably for the first time since, both have had new owners and are on a real kind of progressive trajectory. Newcastle a bit more reserved as we've seen in the last few transfer windows, not wanting to aggravate, not wanting to sell the current players. Obviously, we had to satisfy PSR last summer. We all know how much that stung with Elliot Anderson and Nkuba Minter both leaving to fellow Premier League rivals. Villa had to do the same, of course. They had to sell Douglas Luiz, one of their key players. And they're going to have to do so again now with John Duran looking to move to Saudi. Now, Duran's an interesting one because I think Villa are doing the right thing because it's a fantastic piece of business. Their fee they're set to receive from Al Nassr is up towards and around £70 million. Now, for a player who was signed just, 18 months ago for a similar fee as to what we paid for Willis Sula, could you see Asula having that kind of trajectory next season? Probably not. Now, Villa have been active this month. They've already brought in Marlon, who was very good against us in the Champions League last season. Can go missing. I don't really think he's any better than what Villa already have. But I think it's a case of a bit of wheeling and dealing on their part. They've sold Diego Carlos, who, remember, we were linked with first time round before we finally went and got Sven Botman the following summer, which was the right call. But what is interesting as well, João Felix has been linked to Villa, and Ollie Watkins seems to be the attention of Arsenal now after Arsenal have finally clicked that Alexander Isak is not happening. He will not be leaving Newcastle, let alone this month, but hopefully a new contract in the summer will be very much in the offing for our star Swede. I think what you have to look at as well, yes, it's frustrating seeing teams do business in the transfer window whilst we are kind of stuttering. Yes, it is a bit of a risk not replacing Almiron just because of a sheer numbers game. We're still fighting on three fronts, remember. With the league, which we, Europe is the aim, Champions League is the aim for Eddie Howe and the squad, of course, and Champions League is a must if we are going to keep hold of Isak, Tonali, Bruno, Botman long term. Champions League's a must. Whilst I think the board, and probably the fans as well, will be satisfied with any kind of Europe. Carabao Cup, FA Cup still very much on the cards as well. But look, it is frustrating. It is a risk that we're not replacing Almiron because that leaves Murphy as our only real right winger. Barnes is still around, of course, and there can be some to-ing and fro-ing. His injury's not long-term. Callum Wilson, remember him? He could also be back very soon in the next week or so as well. So Villa selling Duran and potentially selling Watkins as well to satisfy PSR. And I think the reason for this is, and I think this is what it ultimately boils down to, is that Villa's players, whilst they've done very well, aren't at the top level than that of the ones we have, in that Isak, Tonali, Bruno, Botman, they are world-class players who can go on and have a have a really high ceiling, and if they're not world class already, they will be given another year or two. Staying fully fit, of course, in Sven Botman's case. Now, Ollie Watkins is not world class. He's very good. He's 29, so the time was probably right to sell him, really. And I think Villa, if they can get an extra 10 million out of Arsenal for Watkins, then I would sell both their strikers and maybe put a cheeky bid in for Jonathan David. But that's for Villa. I would still be offering Jonathan David a contract if I was Paul Mitchell and Eddie Howe for the summer where he's available on a free, for example, to add that squad depth, as Callum Wilson's probably going to go. And if you're fighting on two fronts, of course, you want two world-class strikers, really, to really balance the load, and you wouldn't have to worry about Isak's fitness. But anyway, I digress. Is Douglas Luiz top level? Probably not. Is Diego Carlos? Almost certainly not. You might see late exits for the likes of Leon Bailey, who aren't top-class players. Have they really got world-class players in their ranks? No, which is why they're able to sell and wheel and deal a lot more than ours, because we already have the players that have the makings of, I'll say it, a world-class side, whereas they don't. So I think we're kind of doing the right thing in a sense, because you sell Isak, what's it going to take to replace? Is Duran replaceable? Yes. Is Watkins replaceable? Yes. Is Isak replaceable? Probably not. Could you then go and get a Jonathan David or a Tell from Bayern Munich? Tell would need a bit of time. Very good player. Like him a lot. But is not realistic for us. Would he go for a backup to Bayern Munich to be a backup at Newcastle? No, of course not. But look, if we can get through to the summer, stay injury-free, which is the risk, is the gamble. Both teams are gambling, because Villa are gambling with PSR. There's no doubt, whilst they were spending players, there was no guarantee that teams were going to come in and offer sums of money for the players they would be willing to sell. So it is a gamble. But look, what would you prefer? What do you think of the two strategies? Both have their risks, both have their plus points. And the two squads, the two sides are very similar. Villa having a great time in the Champions League. I think we would have done exactly the same were we in that format and not the so-called group of death, remember, where the two that went through from our group both faced each other in the semi-finals. So for those sneering at the group of death claims, well, the proof is in the pudding right there. I think we would have done very, very similar to Villa if were we in the Champions League this season, but we're not. Hopefully we can get back there next season. Fifth will probably be enough. But look, let me know your thoughts in the comments. It's an interesting strategy for both sides. I get the frustrations, but it does all come down to PSR, whether you like it or not. It is frustrating. I get the frustration, but it's 99.9% certain that there's going to be no incomings at Newcastle this month, and time is ticking. What is more important, of course, is the next two home games. We have to beat Fulham at home, and we have to not throw away this 2-0 lead we have over Arsenal and secure another trip to Wembley. It's going to be a horrendous evening Wednesday, but hopefully we can come through it the other side. Look, get your comments in, smash the like as always. We'll see you at St James's on Saturday for the visit of Fulham, and of course stay tuned to NFTV.